Hey there, dreamers. Welcome back to Hypothetical, the cozy corner where we drift through the wonders of our world, softly and curiously. I'm so happy you've decided to spend a quiet moment, whether it's night, morning, or that calm in between. Unwinding here with me. Today, as the world outside finds its own rhythm, perhaps in the soft patter of rain against a window, or the distant sigh of the wind through leaves, let us settle into the deepest part of our imagination. Feel yourself ease back, much like settling into the embrace of a favourite worn armchair, or perhaps, if you prefer, like the gentle, almost imperceptible drift of a boat upon an impossibly still lake, its surface reflecting the vast, quiet canvas of the sky. Breathe slowly and let your thoughts ripple outwards, softening their edges, much like pebbles dropped into a deep, clear pool, sending ever-widening circles across its placid face. Our journey tonight begins not with a startling discovery, nor with a grand pronouncement, but with a simple, familiar presence, one that cradles our very existence. Water. Think for a moment of the countless ways it whispers into our lives. Perhaps it's the soothing lullaby of ocean waves, forever unfurling themselves onto sun-warmed shores, each wave a fleeting echo of ancient rhythms. Or it might be the crisp, clean sensation of a glass of cool water on a warm day, a quiet, replenishing ritual. Imagine the ethereal climb of morning mist, lifting itself gently from verdant valleys, a soft, diffuse breath held momentarily between earth and sky, before melting back into the day's tender embrace. Water, in all its myriad forms, is a constant companion, shaping the contours of our familiar world, nurturing life in its boundless embrace. Consider our Earth, this remarkable sapphire, in the velvet expanse of space. When we glimpse its image from afar, particularly from the humbling vantage point beyond our atmosphere, what strikes us most powerfully, beyond the swirls of clouds or the subtle browns and greens of land, is that profound, magnificent blue. It is the dominant hue, a testament to the immense, sprawling oceans that shroud 70% of its surface. These aren't just mere puddles. They are vast, complex, interconnected worlds in themselves, deeper in places than the tallest mountains are high, teeming with mysteries that still elude our understanding, teeming with life beyond our wildest dreams. The Pacific, for instance, a name that evokes a sense of tranquil grandeur, stretches across a third of the globe, holding within its watery embrace islands, currents, and depths that speak of truly monumental scale. And yet, even with this impressive aquatic dominance, even with the snow-capped peaks and glaciers that glimmer like ancient jewels, and the rain that continually falls and rises in a perpetual planetary dance, there remains a tangible distinction, a clear delineation. Here is land, here is ocean. Here is the solidity of rock, here is the fluid embrace of the deep. Two realms intimately intertwined, yet distinct, offering different landscapes, different opportunities, different whispers of life. But what if this balance, so intrinsic to our understanding of Earth, were to shift? Not suddenly, not violently, but imagine a soft, gradual transformation, like the slow, quiet dream of geological time unfolding. Imagine if the very composition of our world, that familiar 70% water and 30% land, were to lean so entirely, so thoroughly, into the liquid, translucent embrace of water, that it became its defining feature, its singular characteristic. Picture, if you will, not just an ocean planet, but a veritable water world, a spherical globe, shimmering and wholly immersed, where the blue of its depths replaces the dusty browns and vibrant greens of what we typically call land. Allow your mind to drift, to unfurl this imagined landscape, if landscape is even the right word. Close your eyes, or simply let your gaze soften as you envision such a place. No soaring mountain ranges piercing the crisp blue sky, no sprawling deserts whispering ancient secrets on parched winds, no forests standing sentinel, their leaves rustling in conversation with the breeze. Instead, what stretches before us in every direction is a vast, continuous, unbroken expanse of liquid. It's an immersion, complete and utter, in the profound serenity of blue. Imagine the sky of such a world. Would there even be one in the way we understand it? Perhaps it would be the ethereal rippling surface itself, a grand luminous ceiling where the sun, instead of burning directly above, filters down, a diffused, ever-shifting radiance. The light would behave differently here, wouldn't it? As it penetrates the colossal body of water, it would transform. The reds and yellows, those fiery hues that paint our sunsets, would be absorbed first, fading gently, surrendering their intensity. Then the greens, then the blues, those enduring colours that seem to linger, reflecting off myriad microscopic particles, creating a continuous, gradient tapestry of azure, indigo, and finally, beyond measure, an infinite inky darkness. Below this radiant dancing ceiling, stretching to an unimaginable depth, lies the true domain of this water planet. Here the concepts of up and down take on a profoundly different meaning. There are no fixed horizons, no distant mountains to guide the eye. Instead, every direction offers an infinite extension of water. Its movements governed by unseen currents, by the slow, inexorable pull of tides, by the subtle dance of thermal upwellings and downwellings. The very fabric of this world would be fluid, its geography ever-shifting, expressed not in immutable mountains and valleys, but in the graceful, powerful movements of water itself. Think of the sounds. On our familiar earth, we hear the chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of human activity. But on a water world, those familiar terrestrial harmonies would be absent. Instead, imagine a profound, enveloping quiet, broken only by the whispers and sighs of the water itself. Perhaps the deep, resonant echoes of colossal pressures shifting, or the distant, muffled pulse of subterranean volcanic vents, exhalations of heat and steam from a hidden core. The soundscape would be one of hushed grandeur, a symphony played on the deepest notes, utterly unique, utterly calming. What would it feel like to exist in such a realm? Without a stable landmass, where would one anchor oneself, literally and metaphorically? Perhaps the very sensation of grounded would be replaced by an ever-present, buoyant suspension, a constant gentle drift within an oceanic womb. The feeling of touch might be a continuous, cool embrace, water against skin, an omnipresent connection to the planet's very essence. The air, if we could even call it that, above this world might be saturated with humidity, thick with the rising breath of the endless ocean, creating perpetual clouds, or perhaps, with no land to cool and condense, a thin, crisp atmospheric layer, utterly unlike our own. The sheer volume of water is almost incomprehensible. On our current Earth, all the water in the oceans, rivers, lakes, ice caps, and even in the clouds, would fit into a sphere just over 860 miles in diameter, a mere speck compared to the planet itself. But if our Earth were entirely water, the sheer scale becomes mind-boggling. The pressures in the deepest parts would be crushing, forging perhaps entirely new states of matter from water itself, exotic ice forms far denser and more structured than any we encounter on the surface today. We could imagine Ice 7 or Ice X forming deep in the abyssal depths, under immense gravitational squeeze, creating a kind of super-dense, crystalline seabed or mantle of frozen structured water. A secret geology forged not of rock, but of pressure and molecular transformation. And what of the temperature? Water, with its remarkable capacity to absorb and retain heat, would likely create a far more stable, moderated climate than our current Earth, buffering against extreme fluctuations. Hot zones might not be scorching, and cold zones not utterly freezing, at least within certain depths. Life in such an environment would be exquisitely adapted to constant movement, to navigating vast featureless expanses with an inner compass, to utilizing the subtle shifts in current and pressure as readily as terrestrial life uses sight and scent. The biology would surely be as alien and fascinating as the geology. This imagining begins to paint a picture of profound serenity, a vast blue solitude. It asks us to reevaluate our very concept of home, of surface, of structure. To simply exist in this gentle, encompassing wetness would be to experience our world in a completely different way, a way that invites a quiet introspection, a letting go of hard edges, an acceptance of boundless flow. This complete embrace of water suggests a world perpetually washing over itself, its surfaces soft and yielding, its depths holding silent, magnificent counsel. It is an invitation to consider not just how a planet might look without land, but how it might feel, how it might be. To truly understand the profound shift of an all-water world, we first ground ourselves in the familiar embrace of our own Earth, a planet of intricate balance and astonishing variety. Picture it for a moment, this home we know so well. From the quiet majesty of a mountain peak, your gaze might stretch across a sprawling valley where a river, silver-ribboned, carves its path towards a distant, shimmering sea. Below, beneath the clouds that drift like woolly sheep, a rich tapestry unfolds. The verdant hush of forests, the golden expanse of deserts, the undulating plains whispering with tall grasses. This is our Earth, a planet where roughly 3/4 of its surface is caressed by the ocean's vastness, yet a significant, interconnected network of continents and islands remains steadfast, forming the foundational stage for so much of life. Think of the way these two great elements, land and sea, dance together. The land rises, sometimes gently, sometimes with a towering grandeur, to meet the atmosphere. It collects rain in high lakes, channels it through rivers that tirelessly sculpt canyons and fertile deltas, eventually releasing it back into the ocean. The land offers solid ground, stable footing for ancient trees to sink their roots deep, for sprawling cities to anchor themselves, for countless creatures to burrow and roam. It creates distinct seasons and microclimates, shaping the very air we breathe as winds sweep across its diverse textures, gathering warmth from sun-baked sands or moisture from mist-shrouded forests. The shores, those delicate thresholds where ocean breathes onto land, are buzzing ecosystems of their own, where tides ebb and flow, bringing nutrients and life, where the land resists the constant pull of the water and is slowly, gently reshaped. Our current configuration, this comfortable ratio of water to land, it is a masterpiece of geological history, sculpted by forces immense and ancient. The grand, slow ballet of plate tectonics constantly renews and reshapes our continents, building mountains through collisions over aeons, pulling apart land masses, creating new basins for water to fill. These continental platforms are not just inert rock. They are crucial components in a planet-sized system that regulates temperature, supports a phenomenal diversity of life, and helps to cycle essential elements like carbon through rocks, oceans, and the atmosphere. Without these stable, emergent land masses, much of what we recognize as Earth would cease to be. And so we begin to gently dip our toes into the hypothetical, the what if. Imagine not just a shift, but a profound reordering. What if, across the entire face of this planet, the continents, those venerable guardians of solidity, were to slowly, majestically sink beneath the waves. Or perhaps, rather than sinking, the ocean simply grew, swelled from its hidden depths, gradually swallowing every valley, then every plain, climbing the flanks of every mountain until only the highest, most stubborn peaks remained, like lonely sentinels gazing out over an unending expanse of blue. This is not merely a thought of higher sea levels. It's a fundamental reimagining, a vision of an Earth truly defined by water, a water world in the truest sense. For the sake of our calm exploration, let's picture a scenario where the total amount of water on Earth remains relatively consistent, but its distribution is dramatically altered. Instead of being largely held within distinct ocean basins bounded by land, we imagine that even the shallowest depressions of our current ocean floor have deepened, and more importantly, that the colossal land masses that now rise above the water have been entirely subsumed. No more vast continents, no more sprawling desert interiors, no more long stretches of coastal plains. The world becomes a globe of almost seamless liquid blue. The initial feeling, perhaps, might be one of serene uniformity. Imagine hovering above such a world. No green-brown swirls of land, no sharp, jagged coastlines. Instead, an almost hypnotic sapphire orb, occasionally punctuated by swirls of cloud, unbroken except, perhaps, by the most monumental of storms. It would be a sight of profound, unblemished beauty, a pearl of cosmic simplicity. Yet, beneath this seemingly calm surface, and woven into its atmospheric envelope, would lie a system utterly transformed, a planet expressing itself through entirely different processes. The very first noticeable difference would be the sheer depth of this global ocean. Even our shallowest current oceans plunge to surprising depths, yet much of what we experience near coastlines is relatively shallow. On a true water planet, where all land is submerged, the average depth of the ocean would increase significantly. Think of the lowest valleys, the grand plains where cities now stand, the gentle slopes leading up to rolling hills. All would be under an immense column of water, a liquid sky of hundreds or even thousands of meters, reaching down into a realm of perpetual twilight. Such a colossal increase in the average depth would have immediate, tangible effects on the physical properties of the ocean itself. The crushing pressure in these new deep zones would be immense, challenging even the hardiest of hypothetical life forms. Light, that precious source of energy, would become an even rarer commodity. On our Earth, sunlight penetrates the ocean only to a relatively shallow depth, perhaps 100 to a couple of 100 meters at most in clear water. Below that lies the dysphotic zone, a realm of perpetual dusk, and further still, the aphotic zone, eternal night where the sun's rays never reach. On a deeper water planet, this sunlit photic zone would feel infinitesimally thin, a shimmering skin on the surface of an overwhelming abyss. Consider the surface, that interface between ocean and air. Without the friction and temperature modulation provided by diverse land masses, the global atmospheric circulation would likely change profoundly. Air currents, which now gain warmth and moisture as they traverse continents, might develop more consistent, perhaps more intense, global patterns. We might see massive, long-lived storms that wander across an unbroken ocean for weeks, gaining strength without the impediment of land to break their stride. The sheer quantity of exposed water surface would also significantly influence the planet's albedo, its reflectivity. A truly global ocean, reflecting more sunlight than the variegated land-sea mix, might influence global temperatures, perhaps leading to a cooler planet, as more of the sun's energy is bounced back into space. The cycle of water itself, which is so fundamental to Earth's climate, would also be reimagined. On our Earth, water evaporates from the ocean, forms clouds, is carried by winds, and then falls as rain or snow over both land and sea. On land, it collects in rivers, streams, lakes and aquifers, sustaining terrestrial ecosystems before finding its way back to the ocean. Without land, precipitation would fall almost entirely back into the vast ocean. There would be no river systems, no great lakes fed by runoff from mountains, no glaciers scraping new landscapes. The freshwater sources that support so much of terrestrial life would vanish, save for perhaps isolated atmospheric processes or unusual deep-sea springs. This brings us gently to the fascinating question of life itself on such a world. Our current Earth thrives on the exquisite interplay between marine and terrestrial environments. Shores, estuaries, tidal flats, river deltas, these ecotones, or transitional zones, are incredibly biodiverse. They offer unique niches, abundant nutrients, and varied conditions that foster a richness of species rarely found elsewhere. On a true water planet, these invaluable transitional zones would be largely, if not entirely, absent. If any land remained, it would be as extraordinarily isolated seamounts or volcanic peaks, perhaps breaching the surface as minuscule, incredibly remote islands. Imagine a single rocky spire piercing the vast ocean. Life on such a place would be precarious, likely consisting of highly specialized flora and fauna, if any could colonize and survive. The absence of continents means no expansive forests breathing carbon dioxide, no vast grasslands hosting immense herds, no complex soil ecosystems teeming with decomposers. Marine life, however, would have a truly colossal realm to expand into. With so much more global ocean, and without the varied riverine and terrestrial runoff altering local chemistries, we might anticipate a more homogeneous marine environment across the planet. Vast populations of pelagic organisms, those that drift or swim in the open ocean, could perhaps reach unimaginable scales. Phytoplankton and zooplankton, the microscopic powerhouses at the base of the oceanic food web, might experience massive population booms, limited primarily by nutrient availability from deeper waters. Imagine endless shimmering blooms visible from space. Larger marine creatures, whales, colossal squid, immense fish, would have an unbroken watery domain, free from the territorial barriers imposed by land masses. Their migrations could span entire hemispheres without encountering any obstacles, creating new and unprecedented evolutionary pressures. Yet, this vastness would also present unique challenges. Without land, where would nutrient-rich sediments accumulate? River systems, laden with minerals from eroding rock, are major transporters of essential elements into our current oceans. On a water world, the primary source of new nutrients for surface waters would likely come from deep-sea upwelling, currents bringing colder, nutrient-dense water from the abyss to the surface, and volcanic activity. This suggests that the distribution of marine life might be less about proximity to a continental shelf and more about specific current patterns and submarine geological activity. Delving deeper, beneath the global ocean's serene surface, lies the heart of the planet itself. The dance of plate tectonics, that colossal engine of geological change, would continue unceasingly, albeit in a radically different theatre. On our Earth, continental plates interact with oceanic plates in complex ways, leading to mountain building, massive earthquakes, and the formation of deep ocean trenches. On a planet entirely covered by water, the fundamental processes of magma rising, new crust being formed at mid-ocean ridges, and old crust being subducted back into the mantle would still occur. However, the interactions would be solely between oceanic plates. This might lead to different kinds of underwater mountain ranges, perhaps even deeper and more extensive abyssal plains. Volcanoes would still erupt, spewing molten rock onto the ocean floor, but these events would always occur beneath a colossal ceiling of water, creating immense pillow lavas and altering water chemistry rather than building emergent islands, unless the volcanic activity were truly exceptional. The entire deep ocean floor would become a landscape perpetually being formed and reformed with new vents, new mineral deposits, and potentially unique forms of chemosynthetic life that thrive on chemical energy rather than sunlight, evolving in relative isolation from surface conditions. Consider the role of carbon. On our current Earth, carbon is stored in immense reservoirs. The atmosphere, the oceans, sediments and rocks, and the biosphere, living organisms, especially forests and soil. Land-based plants play a colossal role in absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, turning it into organic matter, and ultimately storing it in soils for long periods. On a water planet, this terrestrial carbon sink would be completely absent. The oceans would become the dominant regulator of atmospheric carbon. The deep ocean, in particular, can hold vast amounts of dissolved CO2, but how this would interact with a potentially altered atmospheric cycle, or what would happen if immense plankton blooms became the primary biological carbon pump, drawing carbon into their shells and bodies and sinking to the seafloor upon death, is a truly fascinating consideration. It paints a picture of a planetary system finely tuned in a new watery equilibrium. And so, as we allow these initial thoughts to drift through our minds, we begin to feel the scale of this transformation. It's not just a change in appearance, it's a resculpting of planetary geology, a rewiring of the climate system, and a complete reframing of how and where life would thrive. A water world challenges every assumption we have about the familiar, comforting structure of our home planet. We've only just begun to gently stir the surface of this boundless blue concept. The true wonders and indeed the profound challenges lie in contemplating the deep consequences of such an unbroken liquid realm. Picture an expanse, boundless and shimmering. It stretches further than the eye can ever truly comprehend. A singular, unbroken canvas of shifting sapphire and cerulean, mirroring the sky above it with an effortless grace. There are no distant lands, no jagged coastlines emerging from the haze, no gentle slopes of beach inviting a touch of sandy solace. Instead, the horizon is a seamless circle, a perfect join where the liquid world melts into the ethereal canopy. This is the quiet majesty of a water planet, an Earth embraced entirely by its life-giving fluid. The air here feels different, perpetually cool and moist, carrying the subtle saline whisper of the great ocean that forms its very skin. Each breath is imbued with the vastness, a reminder that moisture dominates, an unseen partner in every moment. The light too behaves uniquely. Without the varied textures of land, the rough mountains, the verdant forests, the sprawling deserts, to break and diffuse its path, sunlight travels an uninterrupted journey, striking the liquid surface with a pure, unhindered brilliance. On a calm day, the sun's reflection is a searing jewel, momentarily blinding in its intensity, scattering across countless tiny facets that shimmer and dance as the gentle swell rolls beneath. And on other days, when the great atmospheric rivers begin their silent journey across this world, the light filters through an endless curtain of cloud, painting the surface in soft, diffused silvers and muted greys, lending the scene an almost painterly stillness. Imagine drifting here, truly without a compass save for the slow pull of unseen currents. Your senses would become acutely attuned to the subtle movements, the shifting weight beneath you. The rhythm of the waves, though uniform in its general nature, would possess a unique cadence in the absence of shore-breaking drama. Here, waves do not crash and retreat. They rise and fall with an oceanic inhale and exhale, passing beneath and continuing their eternal journey without interruption. A crest gathering its energy over 1,000 miles would build to a serene peak before dissolving back into the surface, only for the next equally perfect swell to emerge from the endless distance. It's a hypnotic display, a dance as old as the world itself, yet one now entirely devoid of edges or constraints. The visual references we rely on, the steadfast mountain or the distant forest line, simply do not exist. This can be at once deeply unsettling and profoundly liberating, urging the mind to release its attachment to fixed points and surrender to the boundless fluidity. As we ponder this endless surface, our gaze naturally turns downward, drawn by the shimmering mysteries beneath. What unfolds below this vast shifting skin? The very concept of depth takes on an entirely new dimension here, stretching further than anything we know. Our own Earth's oceans hold incredible chasms, but these are often tucked away in discreet trenches, surrounded by sprawling continental shelves and abyssal plains. Here the ocean is the world. And so our deep dive journey truly begins with an imagined descent, a slow, gentle sinking into the heart of this water planet. The initial meters are a marvel of clarity and vibrant light. Picture the sun's rays, long and golden, piercing the surface with countless dancing shafts. These shafts are not still, but rather they ripple and sway with the liquid medium, creating a kaleidoscopic tunnel that invites us deeper. This upper layer, perhaps the first 200 meters or so, is what we might call the photic zone, though even that term feels inadequate here. The light, pure and untainted by terrestrial dust, filters down, bathing the water in hues of brilliant turquoise and vibrant emerald, slowly deepening into a rich, saturated indigo. It's a painter's palette rendered in water, alive with the movement of countless microscopic inhabitants. Tiny specks, like motes of dust in a sunbeam, drift with the currents, the nascent life that would eventually come to dominate this liquid realm. These are the earliest forms of life, unseen by the casual glance yet fundamental, quietly photosynthesizing, harnessing the sun's gentle energy in their unseen dance. In these sunlit depths, the very water feels buoyant, alive. Imagine currents, not as narrow riverine flows, but as vast, slow-moving plains of liquid, tracing immense, silent arcs across the globe. Without the continental shelves and submarine ridges to divert and channel them, these currents would be colossal and unwavering. Grand conveyors of warmth and nutrients. Think of immense rotating gyres, thousands of miles across, that sweep around the entire planet, their invisible force subtly shaping every facet of this aqueous existence. The temperature here might be pleasantly temperate, warmed by the solar embrace and the constant churning of these slow, majestic oceanic rivers. Little is static in this liquid environment. Every particle, every nascent life form, every photon of light is swept along in this global waltz. As we continue our imaginary descent, the transition from light to shadow is gradual, an exquisitely slow darkening. The blues deepen, losing their playful sparkle, becoming more solemn, more profound. The vibrant turquoises recede first, swallowed by the scattering properties of water, leaving behind an increasingly monochromatic world of sapphire. Then lapis, then an almost bruising shade of violet. Each meter further down marks a noticeable shift in the character of the environment. The sunlight, once a palpable, almost warm presence, becomes a mere suggestion, a memory. It disperses and diminishes, bending to the immense liquid column above us. The dancing shafts grow faint, their playful shimmer giving way to an almost static glow, until finally, around the 200:1,000 meter mark, the light gives up its struggle entirely. It simply fades away, not with a sudden switch, but with a prolonged, graceful adieu, leaving us in a realm of perpetual twilight, then an almost complete, profound darkness. In this diminishing light, new sensory impressions arise. The visual world recedes, but the feeling of pressure begins its subtle assertion. It's not a sudden crushing weight, but rather an omnipresent embrace, a soft but undeniable squeeze on every inch of your being. Think of it as the gentle, insistent hand of an unseen giant, holding you ever more firmly. The molecules of water, piled in unimaginable layers above, exert their collective force, reminding us of the immense volume we have traversed. The water itself grows colder, a crisp, chilling embrace that seems to carry the echoes of ancient depths. We pass through invisible thermal boundaries, where warmer surface waters reluctantly surrender to the denser, frigid mass below. These thermoclines are like unseen ceilings, invisible floors, separating worlds within the greater ocean, creating gradients of temperature that ripple through the silent dark. As we continue deeper, truly entering the abyssal zones of this water planet, the absence of light is complete. This isn't merely the darkness of a moonless night, or the blackness of a deep cave. It is a fundamental cosmic void. The eye becomes useless, its finely tuned instruments rendered obsolete. Yet, in this absolute blackness, life persists, indeed, flourishes in ways we might scarcely imagine. What light there is emerges from within. Imagine faint pulsing glows, streaks of blue-green light that appear like ghostly signals in the vast void. This is bioluminescence, the silent language of the deep. Creatures here don't merely reflect light, they create it, transforming chemical energy into a shimmering display of existence. It is a world painted with self-made illuminations, where flashes become lures, warnings, and messages in a canvas of endless night. The stillness here is profound, broken only by the whispers of currents far below and the distant echoes of unseen forms moving through the vastness. But beneath this immense liquid shroud lies another world entirely, the solid foundation of the planet. For even a water planet must have a core, a mantle, a crust, the stony heart that grounds its existence. What does the geology of such a world look like? Without the eroding forces of rain, wind, and frost on exposed land masses, the subterranean landscapes would remain largely undisturbed by surface processes. They would be shaped predominantly by the powerful primal forces from within. Imagine then not jagged, exposed peaks, but submerged mountain ranges stretching for thousands of miles, rising from the abyssal plains, like silent titans. Their highest summits, perhaps only ever hinting at the existence of a grander structure beneath the immense weight of the ocean. These colossal chains would be formed by the slow, inexorable march of plate tectonics, the very engine that shapes all terrestrial worlds. Mid-ocean ridges would snake around the globe, endless seams where new crust is perpetually born, bubbling forth from the fiery mantle. Picture lava, molten rock the colour of angry embers, oozing from fissures deep beneath the unimaginable pressure. But unlike its terrestrial cousin, this lava would instantly meet the super-chilled, weighty ocean water. It would solidify almost instantly, forming pillow lavas, bulbous, glassy formations stacked like vast organic stones, bearing witness to a constant, slow, silent creation. The deep ocean trenches, these gashes in the planetary skin, would plunge even further into the abyssal gloom, their immense depths intensified by the crushing weight of the water column. Here, old oceanic crust would be drawn back into the Earth's mantle, a slow, geological recycling process, happening largely unobserved, save for the faint shimmer of tectonic activity. Volcanoes would still punctuate these abyssal plains, but instead of breaching the surface with fiery eruptions, many would remain entirely submerged, their molten hearts releasing their energy through hydrothermal vents. Picture columns of superheated, mineral-rich water, dense with the chemistry of the deep earth, gushing forth from these vents, rising like shimmering plumes into the frigid darkness. These are the black smokers and white smokers, monuments to chemosynthesis, places where life does not depend on sunlight, but on the chemical energy liberated from the planet's very interior. Around these vents, unimaginable ecosystems would thrive, teeming with strange otherworldly creatures that rely on bacterial communities harnessing these potent chemical energies. Giant tube worms, blind shrimp, and pale ghostly fish would create oases of incredible biodiversity in an otherwise barren expanse, a testament to life's relentless ingenuity. The very rock would hum with geothermal energy, a warmth permeating the seabed, a stark contrast to the enveloping chill. The sediment covering these vast abyssal plains would be incredibly uniform, layer upon layer of microscopic marine snow, the silent fall of countless dead organisms from the waters above, along with fine dusts, carried from cosmic distances, or pulverized particles from submarine volcanism. Without the chaotic influence of river runoff or the erosion of continental shelves, the layers would accumulate in a gentle, almost perfectly distributed blanket, preserving a flawless geological record of the eons. Imagine probing these sediments, perhaps with delicate sonic pulses, revealing a stratified history of the water planet, each layer a whisper from a bygone era, recording subtle shifts in global climate or distant, unnoticed tectonic movements. It would be a history written not in stone pages that can be found above the waves, but in an unbroken, vast aquatic archive. And so this deep structure, unseen but profoundly powerful, continues to shape the character of our water world, even the very currents that sweep across its surface. The interplay of temperature and unseen contours of the seabed creates a symphony of liquid motion, a planetary circulatory system. This is the realm of global currents, the vast and slow-moving rivers within the ocean that define the planet's internal rhythm. Without the land masses to disrupt their flow, these currents would attain truly gargantuan proportions, stretching unhindered across thousands of miles. Imagine a vast, deep current, a silent underwater river, carrying immense volumes of water from pole to equator and back again. These are often driven by differences in water density, influenced by temperature and salinity. The water warmed in equatorial regions becomes less dense and rises, flowing towards the poles where it gradually cools, becomes heavier, and sinks, beginning its slow, profound journey back towards the warmth. This deep, slow circulation, often called the thermohaline conveyor belt, would operate with a singular global efficiency on a water planet. It would be a seamless, endless loop, redistributing heat and nutrients around the entire world. The cold, dense waters from the deep polar regions, chilling perhaps beneath an unbroken expanse of sea ice, would creep along the abyssal plains, hugging the contours of the submarine mountains and trenches, slowly filling the vast basins of this water world. These frigid waters would carry with them vital oxygen, a necessity for the deepest life forms, bringing the breath of the surface to the greatest depths. Conversely, warmer surface currents, gently driven by the omnipresent winds, would move in vast looping patterns across the endless ocean surface, regulating the global temperature and distributing the life-giving warmth from the equator to the more distant reaches of the planet. These currents would profoundly impact the planet's climate. With water's remarkable capacity to absorb and release heat, these vast liquid rivers would act as an immense self-regulating thermal engine. Extreme temperature fluctuations, so common on worlds with exposed land masses that heat and cool rapidly, would be largely muted here. Days would flow into nights with a more tempered, gradual shift in ambient temperature, and seasons, if they exist with meaningful variation at all, would unfold with a sublime slowness. The entire planet would possess a kind of thermal inertia, resistant to sudden shifts, creating an environment of extraordinary stability. This enduring consistency, shaped by the liquid heart of the planet, would lay a critical foundation for the very emergence and sustainment of life. The constant evaporation from this colossal surface would continuously feed a vigorous, unceasing hydrological cycle, dictating the very nature of its weather and climate. Picture an atmosphere perpetually humid, dense with moisture drawn upward by the sun's tireless energy, The air would feel pregnant with potential rain, a gentle dampness clinging to everything. Clouds, the airy manifestations of this unending cycle, would be ever-present, an uninterrupted, ethereal tapestry draped across the entire world. Imagine skies painted with endless variations of soft grey, brilliant white, and occasionally, with the sun low on the horizon, fleeting moments of pink and lavender as sunlight struggles through atmospheric haze. Rain on this water world would be an intimate, constant companion. It would not be the violent, refreshing deluges that quench a parched landscape, but a perpetual, gentle drizzle, sometimes strengthening to a soft drumming on the surface, other times a delicate mist barely perceptible as it merges with the liquid world below. The sound would be different too. No patter on leaves, no drumming on roofs, just the continuous hushed whispering of water meeting water. A boundless echo that emphasizes the solitude and scale of the oceanic realm. This persistent rainfall, even when heavy, would likely not create runoff or floods in the terrestrial sense. It would simply add to the immense volume already present, a constant renewal, a cosmic top-up of the global sea. Severe weather, though, might manifest in utterly spectacular, potentially terrifying ways. Hurricanes and vast oceanic storms on Earth typically dissipate their energy when they encounter land, starved of the warm, moist air that fuels them. But on a water planet, such storms could potentially roam unchecked, drawing ceaseless energy from the warm surface waters. Imagine cyclonic systems of unimaginable scale and longevity, vast spinning vortices of wind and rain, perhaps spanning thousands of miles, their eyes immense calm portals within a tempestuous outer wall. They could become truly perpetual phenomena, migrating slowly across the endless ocean, growing and shrinking in intensity, but never finding the friction of land to slow their colossal dance. For any theoretical inhabitants, these storms would represent the ultimate display of the planet's power. Immense and inescapable forces that reshape perception and existence itself. And yet, despite the ferocity of potential storms, the sheer moderating capacity of a global ocean would temper the extremes of temperature. Heat collected in the equatorial zones would be effectively distributed poleward, preventing scorching excesses. Conversely, the deep, warm currents rising from below would provide a reservoir of heat, preventing runaway ice ages. While significant climatic shifts, like orbital wobbles or solar variations, would undoubtedly leave their mark, the vast ocean would serve as a formidable buffer, absorbing and re-emitting energy with a characteristic languor, making any change a truly gradual, deeply subtle affair. It would be a world of magnificent stasis, where monumental forces unfold with profound patience, and within this vast, dynamic yet stable, aqueous embrace, life would undoubtedly arise. Indeed, it might have nowhere else but to arise in water. The conditions for its genesis could be everywhere. The primordial soup, not confined to isolated shallow pools, but stretching across an entire planetary surface. The very act of living would be intrinsically linked to the currents, the depths, and the light, shaping creatures in ways profoundly different from our land-locked perception. Imagine the earliest stirrings of life, perhaps in the warmth of those equatorial surface waters, or near the nutrient-rich chemosynthetic warmth of the hydrothermal vents hidden in the abyss. From simple, single-celled organisms, buoyed by the gentle currents, life would begin its long, meandering evolutionary journey. There would be no land to crawl onto, no separate atmosphere to breathe. The entire struggle for existence would play out within the fluid medium, under its gentle, constant pressure. The distinction between marine and terrestrial would simply vanish. All life would be, in its very essence, aquatic. The surface layers, the photic zone, would be an unimaginable Eden of microscopic life. Picture vast meadows of phytoplankton, blooming like cosmic gardens, tinting the upper waters with vibrant greens and blues. These tiny producers would form the bedrock of the entire food chain, harnessing the persistent, if sometimes diffused, sunlight. Grazing upon these floating pastures would be countless zooplankton, minute animal forms drifting with the currents, perpetually seeking sustenance. Their movements, unseen individually, would contribute to the almost imperceptible churn and hum of life that pervades these waters. As we descend just beyond the photic zone, where light is a precious commodity, adaptations for existence would become exquisitely honed. Imagine creatures here developing immense, hypersensitive eyes, vast optical nets, designed to capture every stray photon, every fleeting glimmer of bioluminescence. Others might shed their visual dependence entirely, evolving complex sensory organs to detect minute changes in pressure, temperature, or chemical composition, mapping their world through vibration and chemoreception. Perhaps echolocation would become paramount, allowing swift hunters to navigate and locate prey in a perpetual dark, sending out pulses and interpreting the faint echoes that return, building a sound picture of their environment. Further down, in the inky blackness of the abyss, where sunlight never penetrates, the ecosystems around the hydrothermal vents would burst with activity. These deep oases would be hotbeds of primary production, where chemosynthetic bacteria would form the base of the food web, converting the inorganic chemicals erupting from the planet's interior into organic matter. Picture vast fields of giant, crimson-plumed tube worms, swaying gently in the perpetual warmth of the vent water, their bodies hosting symbiotic bacteria that feed them. Imagine blind white crabs scuttling over volcanic rocks, filter feeding on the bacterial mats, or ghostly octopuses with translucent skin gliding silently through the plumes, perfectly adapted to a life of pressure, heat, and chemosynthetic bounty. Life throughout the entire water column, from surface to abyss, would be characterized by incredible pressure resistance and adaptations for efficient movement. Streamlined bodies would be ubiquitous, allowing swift passage through the dense medium. Buoyancy regulation would be key, with creatures evolving ingenious methods of maintaining their desired depth, from gas bladders to lipid-filled tissues. Bioluminescence would evolve not just as a means of communication and attraction, but also as camouflage, with many species producing light to match the dim background glow of the sunlit twilight zones from below, or to distract and confuse predators. The palette of forms would be astonishing. Each creature a masterpiece of engineering, perfectly tailored for its specific liquid niche. Now consider the profound question of intelligent life. If intelligent beings were to arise on such a water world, what would their journey entail? The very foundations of what we consider civilization on a land-based world would be radically redefined. There would be no stone to cut, no wood to fell, no earth to cultivate in the terrestrial sense. Fire, our transformative tool, would be impossible underwater. The concept of building, as we understand it, would necessitate completely different materials and methodologies. Perhaps they would engineer structures from grown organic materials, massive bioluminescent colonies, or calcium carbonate deposits that could provide shelter from currents or predators. Their technological progress would likely focus on different principles. Acoustic technology would become their dominant mode of sensing, mapping, and communication, reaching sophisticated levels beyond our comprehension. Sonar pulses, finely tuned sonic signals, might carry information and meaning across vast oceanic distances. Imagine vast libraries of sound, ancient songs encoded with history, complex narratives sung into the boundless deep. The understanding of hydrodynamics, pressure, and the intricacies of oceanic currents would be their ultimate science, their mastery of buoyancy and motion far exceeding any human achievement. Their perspective of the universe would also be fundamentally different. The sky, viewed through a perpetual liquid filter, would hold fewer secrets directly. Stars and planets would be obscured, though they might be faintly glimpsed on extraordinarily clear days or from specially designed pressurized observation domes. Yet, the vastness of the ocean itself, with its unfathomable depths and endless horizons, might well serve as their cosmic void, the grand unknown, inspiring awe and contemplation that we direct towards the distant galaxies. The notion of progress for such a civilization would not involve conquering land or reaching for the stars in a physical rocket. It might involve understanding the deepest abysses, mastering the powerful currents, exploring new pockets of hydrothermal life, or achieving a profound symbiosis with their oceanic home. Their philosophy might emphasize interconnectedness, fluidity, and deep time, reflecting the unbroken continuity of their liquid existence. Without land as a barrier, their global society could potentially be far more integrated, communicating and interacting across immense stretches of water. The ocean, which both contains them and provides their every need, would be seen not as an environment to be exploited, but as an integral, living part of their being, perhaps revered with a profound spiritual understanding. The moon, our celestial companion, would dance its familiar rhythm above this water planet, exerting its gentle, invisible pull. But the consequence of that pull would be amplified and dramatically altered on a world entirely cloaked in water. Without land masses to interfere, to create bottlenecks and complex coastal resonance, the tides would be majestic, slow-moving behemoths. Picture a truly global bulge of water, imperceptibly yet immensely pulled across the face of the planet by the combined gravity of the moon and the sun. Instead of swift tidal currents ripping through narrow channels, these would be profound, almost unnoticeable alterations in global water levels, immensely slow shifts of oceanic volume across continental distances. Imagine an entire hemispheric basin gently rising and falling by meters over the course of hours, a massive, unhurried breath taken by the entire planetary ocean. These subtle but immense displacements would drive powerful internal waves within the ocean, colossal movements of water along the boundaries of different densities, particularly the thermoclines. These unseen internal tides, hundreds of meters high, could propagate for thousands of miles through the abyssal depths, profoundly influencing deep ocean mixing and nutrient transport, silently stirring the very essence of the deep-sea world. The sun, of course, remains the primary source of external energy, dictating the warmth of the surface layers and fueling the endless water cycle. Its daily path across the sky would create the only consistent external marker for any form of temporal reckoning. For the creatures of the upper photic zone, the shift from brilliant sun to softer starlight, however muted by the vast humid atmosphere, would still define their cycles of activity and rest. But for those in the depths, time might unfold with an entirely different rhythm. Days and nights would be marked not by light, but perhaps by the subtle, almost imperceptible changes in deep currents, or the periodic, long-distance calls of migrating life forms. The year, as a cycle of seasons, would be a concept primarily tied to temperature variations across the globe, rather than directly to solar altitude changes that would drive different growing cycles on exposed land. This pervasive wetness, this fundamental fluidity, would permeate every aspect of existence, shaping not only physical forms, but also minds and cultures. A civilization of ocean dwellers would develop a profound understanding of pressure, buoyancy, and the nuances of density. Their perception of space would likely be three-dimensional and continuous, lacking the strict up and down, flat surface bias we experience on land. The concept of a home or a settlement might be a flexible one, moving with the great currents, or built within slow-growing living structures that are an organic extension of their environment. Their art might involve light manipulation, weaving intricate patterns with bioluminescence, or sculpting massive forms from dense, slow-growing organic compounds. Their history would not be written on stone tablets, but perhaps embedded in ancient oral traditions passed through complex layered vocalizations, resonating across oceanic distances. These solic narratives might be intricately woven with metaphors of depth, current, pressure, and the infinite interconnectedness of all life in their watery world. Imagine their stories speaking of vast migrations across the entire globe, following the invisible currents, perhaps telling of encounters with ancient, immense leviathans that drift in the abyssal plains, creatures that are as much a part of the planet's fundamental structure as the submerged mountains. The concept of a journey would take on an entirely different meaning. It would not be a traversing of distinct landscapes, but a fluid immersion, a prolonged interaction with different thermal layers, current systems, and depths. To explore would be to delve deeper, to navigate unknown currents, to uncover new forms of life within the countless niches of the liquid planet. And what would they dream of, these creatures of the deep? Perhaps they would dream of flying, of leaping beyond the surface tension into the thin, unknown gaseous realm above, sensing the true vastness of the cosmos unfiltered by water. Or perhaps their deepest dreams would be of discovering the very bottom, touching the deepest rock, understanding the ancient fires that burn unseen within their liquid world. Such a world, an Earth transformed into an ocean planet, offers a profound perspective. It forces us to shed our terrestrial biases, to imagine a reality where land is merely a rumour, and water is the universal solvent, the boundless stage for all existence. It whispers of an entirely different pathway for life, for intelligence, for meaning itself. The rhythms would be slower, grander, more deeply intertwined with the fundamental forces of geology and cosmology. A place where gravity's gentle hand on a drop of water can define civilizations, and the absence of light can give rise to untold brilliance. It's a silent, swirling testament to the adaptability of life and the immense possibilities held within the simplest of elements, a world of pure, unadulterated fluid poetry. And so, having journeyed into the profound depths of a world sculpted entirely by water, we find ourselves drifting gently back, cradling a deeper sense of perspective. The image of a boundless, shimmering sphere, reflecting the light of its star across an unbroken expanse of blue and emerald, lingers in the mind's eye. We've seen, in our quiet exploration, how life might adapt and thrive within such a singular realm, how pressures become cradles, and darkness conceals universes of light, how the very air above would taste of a primal humidity, perpetually infused with the ocean's vast breath. Looking across all of this, a tapestry of thought begins to weave itself, threads drawn from the speculative reality we've built, and extending softly outward to touch our own terrestrial experience. What does it truly mean to conceive of a world without shorelines, without the anchoring solidity of land beneath our feet? A world where the horizon is always liquid, always flowing, always offering itself to an eternal drift. It asks us to re-evaluate our definitions of stability, of shelter, of journey, and perhaps most profoundly, of connection. In that imagined water world, every living thing would, in some fundamental way, be an intrinsic part of the global ocean. Boundaries that define our land-dwelling existence, nation-states' property lines, even the stark delineation between forest and desert would simply vanish. The great currents would become the arteries of existence, dictating migration, distributing nutrients, sculpting habitats in ways far more profound and absolute than any terrestrial mountain range or river ever could. And life itself, in such an environment, would embody an ultimate fluidity, constantly responding, adapting, finding a foothold in the endless movement, celebrating the dance of symbiosis and resilience. Imagine the subtle interplay of forces, the vast underwater forests of kelp swaying in unison, stretching for miles, providing sanctuary, generating oxygen. An ecosystem woven purely from the dynamic interplay of current, light, and depth. These living landscapes would speak of a collective consciousness, an interdependence where the health of one zone directly mirrors the vitality of another, all tethered by the omnipresent medium of water itself. When we consider the adaptations life would undergo, the very concept of struggle takes on a new hue. In a world without land, without the concept of solid ground, existence becomes a masterclass in elegant suspension. Creatures would evolve to float with grace, to delve into unimaginable pressures with fortitude, to generate their own illumination in the perpetual twilight of the deep. Their existence would not be about conquering territory, but about harmonizing with the fluid territory that defines them. Bioluminescence would cease to be an exotic anomaly and would, perhaps, become the most ubiquitous language, an ephemeral script written in living light against the backdrop of an infinite dark. Each flash, each glow, a whispered word of courtship, warning, or navigation across distances we can barely comprehend. The very idea of an eye would take on new purpose, piercing through watery murk, seeking out these luminous signals, deciphering the fleeting conversations of an entire biosphere. This leads us to a fascinating reflection on the nature of scarcity and abundance. Our terrestrial world grapples with uneven distribution of fertile soil, fresh water, mineral wealth. But on a true water world, the primary resource, water itself, would be universally abundant. The scarcities might instead be light, or particular chemical gradients at specific hydrothermal vents, or even stable, slow-moving currents that allow for delicate floating ecosystems to form. This shift in scarcity alters the fundamental equations of evolution and social development, creating different pressures, different innovations. It compels us to consider how our own societal structures, our conflicts and collaborations, are profoundly shaped by the distribution of the resources specific to our planet, our unique balance of land and sea. It whispers that another planetary existence would necessitate an entirely different set of foundational principles, a rethinking of value, ownership, and sustainable living, predicated on the dominant medium. And what of humanity or a species like us, born into such a boundless ocean? Our senses, our technologies, our very consciousness would be radically reshaped. Imagine our primary mode of perception not being sight across landscapes, but echolocation, sonar pulses, sensing vibrations through the dense medium. Communication would need to traverse the complexities of deep pressure and saline conductivity. Architecture would not build upwards against gravity, but outward, buoyant, or burrowed into the bedrock of the ocean floor, utilizing pressure differential for structural integrity. The concept of home might be a dynamic, migrating, current-dwelling habitat, or a geothermal vent city warmed by the planet's core, a veritable sanctuary carved from the eternal deep. We might become artists of pressure and flow, choreographers of suspended communities, our history written not in stone, but perhaps in vast, bioluminescent murals, on the inside of transparent domes, or encoded in the resonant hum of engineered choral structures. Our very memory might be tied to specific currents, specific depths, specific luminous dialogues with the environment. The absence of a static horizon, the perpetual motion of liquid vistas, suggests a profound impact on philosophy and spirit. Would the human need for exploration be dulled by the seeming uniformity of the deep, or intensified by its infinite, subtle variations? The answer, surely, is the latter. The mountains to be scaled would be the gradients of pressure. The forests to navigate would be abyssal plains and vast oceanic trenches. The skies above would be the shifting play of sunlight diffused through kilometers of water. Each journey would be an immersion, a profound surrender to the element that defines everything. Our connection to the cosmos might be profoundly different too, glimpsing the stars not from solid ground, but from beneath a moving, shimmering surface, their light fractured and softened by the water column, a constant reminder of the gentle filtration of reality that water provides. Or perhaps from transparent habitats deep below, we might learn to see the Earth's mantle glowing above us as our truest sky, and the sun-drenched surface as a mythical realm, almost beyond our reach. This exploration naturally draws our thoughts to the broader cosmos. When we gaze upon distant exoplanets, imagining worlds swathed in atmospheres unlike our own, orbiting stars of alien hues, we often carry the bias of our terrestrial experience. But our journey into the water world gently loosens that grip. It shows us that life's persistence, its sheer audacity, extends far beyond the familiar parameters we often impose. A water world is not merely an interesting hypothetical. It is a profound testament to the infinite ingenuity of physical laws, chemical interactions, and biological adaptation. It widens our understanding of habitability, pushing the boundaries of what we define as possible, showing us that the dance of existence can take on forms that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about structure, support, and survival. It reminds us that our own Earth, with its perfect, almost miraculous balance of land and sea, its diverse ecosystems, its dynamic geology, is just one exquisitely tuned expression within a universe of potentially infinite planetary variations. Our very presence on this land and sea world feels, in this expanded view, both ordinary and utterly extraordinary, simultaneously a testament to cosmic abundance and a unique, precious unfolding. The quiet understanding emerging from this deep dive is one of interconnectedness, profound and pervasive. Every drop in the ocean impacts every other drop. Every living organism is, by definition, part of a continuum. There is no separation, only differing densities, different flows within a unified whole. It's a compelling metaphor for our own existence, perhaps, reminding us that despite our perceived individual boundaries, we too are part of larger currents, social, environmental, existential, that flow through and around us. Our actions, our thoughts ripple outward, affecting the medium of shared experience. In the contemplation of such a world, the lines blur, and the distinction between individual and environment becomes a gentle fusion. And when we step back, considering the sheer weight and ubiquity of water itself, we are drawn into a quiet appreciation for this elemental force. It carves valleys, sculpts coastlines, carries life, and mirrors the sky. It is both giver and taker, builder and eraser. On our imagined water planet, this essence would be amplified to an unimaginable degree, becoming the fundamental canvas, the primary architect of everything. It would redefine not only life, but also time, perhaps moving to the rhythm of unseen tides generated by distant moons, its vastness embodying eternity. In the quiet spaces between these moments, the realization surfaces that even here, on our familiar Earth, water is not just a resource. It is the animating spirit of our world, often unseen in its profoundest workings, yet entirely essential, from the sap in a tree to the blood in our veins, to the very clouds that shadow our skies. The water world, then, is not merely an exercise in science fiction. It is an amplification, a grand echo of a truth that quietly defines us. In this way, the water planet becomes a kind of gentle lens through which to view our own precious terrestrial home. Its extreme provides context, its uniformity illuminates our diversity, its singular focus underscores the multifaceted marvel of our lands, our mountains, our forests, our deserts, all dancing in delicate concert with the oceans we do possess. The stark contrast deepens our understanding of the specific conditions that allowed for a terrestrial biosphere, for the blossoming of life into countless forms that rely on a balance of both solid and liquid realms. It quietly underscores the sheer chance, the incredible fine-tuning that led to a planet with a thin skin of solid crust, supporting vibrant, breathing ecosystems, surrounded by vast, life-giving seas. It allows us a moment to truly appreciate the precise, gentle symphony of forces that created our continents, uplifted our peaks, and laid the foundations for so much of the life we recognize. Ultimately, our sojourn into this vast, deep blue world leaves us not with definitive answers, but with expanded wonder. It leaves us with a quiet hum of cosmic possibility, a deeper appreciation for the creative power of water, and an enduring respect for life's incredible capacity to adapt and flourish, even in conditions we once thought inhospitable. It expands the horizon of our imagination, not outward to the edge of the universe, but inward, into the very nature of existence itself, gently inviting us to rethink what it means to be alive, to thrive, and to belong anywhere in this vast, mysterious cosmos. And so, after traversing the boundless liquid expanses of our hypothetical water planet, we find ourselves gently drawn back to the quiet harbour of our own imagination, bringing this wondrous voyage to a peaceful close. We cast off from familiar shores at the outset, seeking the phantom outlines of land that never was, peering into the sunless abysses, and listening for the silent echoes of an unwritten evolution. The journey, though entirely within the serene chambers of our mind, felt vast and all-encompassing, didn't it? A boundless exploration of deep blues and unexplored possibilities, a reverie played out across the cosmic stage of what if. This oceanic earth, a pure sapphire jewel suspended in the cosmic tapestry, evokes a profound and singular sense of serenity. Imagine its unbroken horizon, a perfect circle stretching beyond human comprehension, forever unfurling itself to meet an endless sky, offering no solid anchor, save for the constant rhythm of its own endless breath. No towering peaks scrape the heavens, no sprawling deserts shimmer in the heat, no ancient forests stretch their boughs to meet the morning sun. Only water, boundless and deep, layer upon shimmering layer, reaching down into geological time, a colossal womb nurturing secrets beyond our comprehension. Its very uniformity would be its grandeur, its sameness a canvas for infinite, subtle variations in light and shadow, current and tide. Our deep-sea explorations into this concept invited us to question our very definitions of life and existence itself. Would a conscious being, evolved in the profound silence of its deepest waters, ever truly grasp the concept of a sky in the way we do, or comprehend the whisper of a wind across dry land? Their sun would be a distant, diffused glow filtering through leagues of water, their seasons measured perhaps by minute shifts in temperature and salinity, or by the great migrations of deep-sea currents. Would time itself feel different in such a world, measured not by the turning of leaves or the shift of light on stone, but by the slow churn of titanic currents, the imperceptible rise and fall of unseen oceanic pulses within the liquid cosmos? Perhaps this endless ocean embodies a primal form of being, a universe distilled to its most fluid essence, a constant flow, an eternal cycle, without the perceived stasis of terrestrial forms, where everything is motion, everything is ebb and flow. It is a profoundly humbling thought, this realization that our very framework of understanding is inherently tied to the land and air we inhabit. As we ease our way back from that profound azure dream, like a distant wave gently receding from the shore of our thoughts, we find ourselves once more standing, or rather floating, upon the tranquil waters of quiet contemplation. Our own earth, with its vivid tapestries of land and sea, its complex symphony of life above and below the surface, now feels even more wondrous, its unique tapestry of ecosystems even more precious. The contrast doesn't diminish either world, but rather magnifies the unique, almost improbable beauty of each. Our familiar planet, with its jagged mountains and whispering forests, its sun-drenched beaches and bustling cities, its vibrant ecosystems born of the exquisite interplay between solid ground, liquid grace, and the breath of atmosphere. It truly is a jewel of another kind, isn't it? One could say that the what if amplifies the is, granting us a renewed sense of gratitude for the specific conditions that shaped our home. And perhaps this gentle journey into the hypothetical serves a purpose beyond mere curiosity or academic musing. It reminds us of the infinite canvas upon which reality paints its masterpieces. It reminds us that our own perspectives, shaped so fundamentally by the very ground we walk upon and the air we breathe, are but one specific lens through which to perceive the grand orchestra of existence. To imagine an entirely different Earth, to construct such a complete vision in the quietude of the mind, is to stretch the boundaries of our own understanding, to humble us before the sheer creative power of the universe. It asks us to recognize the miraculous confluence of conditions that converge to allow our very specific reality, with its verdant continents and boundless oceans, to unfurl and evolve. It's an exercise in expanding compassion for possibilities we cannot fully grasp, and an affirmation of the subtle majesty of what is. The omnipresence of water in our imagined world echoes its fundamental, undeniable role in our own. Water is the cradle of life, the solvent of mysteries, the silent narrator of our planet's deepest stories. In the profound darkness of its deepest parts, it holds remnants of the ancient earth, tales told in currents and salinity, a history written in pressure and darkness, yet forever in motion. Whether cascading down a mountainside, shimmering as dewdrop on a blade of grass, or forming the colossal currents of an alien ocean, water remains a testament to both constancy and profound change, to serene stillness and irresistible flowing motion. It is the very essence of transformation and life-giving grace, connecting all things in its fluid embrace. It washes over time, eroding some histories, preserving others, an indifferent yet nurturing force. In the deep silence of an all-water world, where no land-based wind would carry a distant sound, where light itself barely penetrates, perhaps peace would be not merely an absence of noise, but a pervasive, living quiet. A quiet born of immense depth, of vastness untouched by human clamour or terrestrial activity. A quiet that invites the soul to sink into its own profound stillness, mirroring the calm below the storm. It's a meditative thought, isn't it? To let the gentle currents of imagination carry you effortlessly, to feel the soft rhythmic sway of possibility, to find a peculiar comfort in the enormity of what could be, even if it remains a whisper in the mind's eye. There the soul finds its anchor not in solid ground, but in the boundless flow. We might never truly grasp the full reality of such a world, of course. Our understanding is inherently tethered to our own experience, our senses finely attuned to a world of shores and skies, to the subtle scent of pine and the rustle of leaves. But the beautiful limitation of our terrestrial perspective does not prevent the mind from soaring or diving into these speculative depths, from creating visions that push the very edge of comprehension. And in that very act of stretching, of reaching into the great what if, we expand not only our knowledge of the cosmos and its myriad possibilities, but our appreciation for the sheer audacity of existence itself, in all its conceivable forms. To dream these impossible worlds is to understand the improbable magic of our own. As the gentle currents of this conversation begin to slow, and the imagined vastness of the water planet recedes into the soft twilight of our minds, perhaps you can carry a fragment of its profound tranquility with you. Let the idea of endless horizons, of unplumbed depths, of a world in constant fluid motion, become a comforting hum, a peaceful undercurrent as you prepare for your own journey into rest. Just as the ocean holds untold secrets beneath its surface, so too do our dreams hold an entire submerged landscape of thoughts, feelings, and quiet wonders, waiting to be explored by the gentle currents of our subconscious mind. Allow that same sense of quiet mystery to wash over you, preparing the way for a restful night in the grand, silent symphony of the cosmos. Where planets spin and stars ignite in distant majesty, the conditions for life, in all its myriad forms and expressions, are truly delicate and extraordinary. Whether on a land-dotted earth with its vibrant, noisy ecosystems, or an entirely aquatic one wrapped in an eternal, murmuring blue, the mere fact of existence, of consciousness observing itself, is a miracle woven from stardust and the patient passage of time. And perhaps, in the end, whether water touches a firm shore or simply meets the unbroken curve of an endless horizon, the true wonder lies not just in the exquisite composition of worlds, but in our boundless capacity to dream them into being, to ponder their secrets with gentle curiosity, and to find profound peace in their quiet, imaginative presence. Let that wonder cradle you now. So, as you settle deeper into this tranquil moment, allowing your own internal waters to calm and reflect the peace you've cultivated, perhaps you might gently consider extending this feeling of peaceful inquiry to future explorations of wonder. If these quiet ponderings have brought a sense of serenity, or sparked a flicker of fascination, a soft whisper of engagement, a gentle tap of appreciation, or perhaps a quiet subscription, would always be a welcome current in our shared journey through the cosmos. For now, though, simply rest. Let the imagined lapping of waves from a world beyond your knowing lull you into a state of quiet contemplation. Let the thought of infinite serene blue become a soothing blanket around you, dissolving any last lingering edges of thought into profound peace. And so we bring this gentle exploration to a close. May your night be filled with peaceful thoughts, tranquil dreams, and the quiet comfort of endless possibilities. Rest well, beloved dreamers, until the next whisper from the cosmos calls us together again in this cozy corner of wonder.